Hi guys, quick video over here. One of you actually asked me about my view on the Australia dollar under one of my videos that I posted on YouTube, right? And I thought it would be great to share with you some thought process and of course again behind the scenes of how I actually analyze certain pairs and why I actually came to the conclusion that I'm actually looking and I'm more interested in buying the Australia dollar compared to selling it. Alright, so a very quick look again. Many people thought that you need a lot of sophisticated laptop, multiple screens to actually do an analysis. It's actually not because all I do is just one laptop, right? One screen, and that's all it takes, alright? You might see a lot of indicators over here running. No worries, alright? I'll go over to my screen and I'll share with you my entire thought process as to how I analyze the Australia dollar. Right, cool. Over here, what you're seeing is I'm going to share with you the analysis of the Australia dollar. Okay, while you're seeing a lot of indicators on this chart, what I'll do is I'll walk you through a very brief understanding of what you're seeing over here. Okay, these indicators are actually all related to COT report, which means or which stands for Commitment of Traders. What this means is in a very quick way to share with you, it basically calculates in the futures market, right, the how many people are holding on to their buy position, how many people are holding on to a sell positions, and they are able to collate such data because the futures market is a centralized market, which is very different from the FX spot market, okay, which is decentralized. So because it's a centralized market in the futures, they are able to collate, who is buying, how many people are buying, how many people are selling, right? And this information is actually quite useful for us if we are looking at a longer term perspective of analysis, because we'll be then understanding in the market generally, are there still people interested to buy, or are there people still interested to sell, and therefore we are able to position ourselves better in terms of a longer term perspective, right? So what you see over here, I'll walk you through a little bit. Okay, what you see at the top over here is actually the net position, which means you basically just take the overall buy and sell position and net it. Okay, do you get a positive number or negative number? And of course, if it's positive, means there are more people buying. If it's negative, means there's more people selling. All right. But we don't only look at that. We also want to understand overall where is the net position relative to historical aspect of it. Okay, so you can see over here the white line. Okay, this chart over here, that's your that's your net position. Okay, the orange one is actually just the average of the net position. Okay, so right now what we see is that the current net position is in the negative territory, but it's above the average, which means that compared to historical averages, right now the net position is above the average. Okay, and what we are looking at is this kind of like indicate a potential reversal. Okay, while it's still in the negative territory, but it's above the average, so there's a possibility or high probability that this can continue to move upwards. Okay, and once it crosses the zero level, which means that overall there will be more buyers in the market, and that will turn into a bullish sentiment. Okay, but as of now, it's still an early sign. Okay, the next chart window that you see over here is what I call the index. Okay, which means that you have 100 and a 0. 100 is the highest, 0 is the lowest, and basically it acts like an oscillator, which means that you want to see, is it in an overbought or oversold environment. Okay, of course, there is some like overbought, oversold territory. You can see over here the green and red, that's the one that I use to mark those territory. Okay, and what you understand right now is that this index, the white line, is pretty low. As of now, it's somewhere around 25. Okay, and you can see that it came from way below, around 3.3. So what I'm seeing over here is there's much more room to the upside compared to the downside. Okay, so that also gives me that quick understanding that the opportunity to buy has much more potential compared to selling it. Okay, so this is more on long-term perspective. Okay, the third window over here that you see, is basically just a measurement of interest in terms of percentage. And what I use to see is the green is the one that is in buying position, the red is of course the short, the selling position. Okay, again, I'm using it as more like at which level it tends to reverse. You can see the green, okay, somewhere around this white line. Okay, every time it peaks over there, it tends to reverse. Okay, and right now we are somewhere around 25. The peak over here is 68. Again, the upside potential is way greater compared to shorting it. Okay, so there's much more room for the buyers to move compared to the red color sellers. Okay, so that again give me that quick understanding that there's more interest in buying compared to selling, right? For me, right? So that's the potential that I'm looking at. Okay, the last chart window is not that significant, but what it means is basically interest. Okay, so you can see it in terms of like volume. Okay, and of course, what we want to see is that when price or the price movement starts to really move in a particular direction. Okay, what we want is that it's supported by volume, and of course, we want to see an increase in volume when price move in certain direction. Okay, so that's not the most particular thing, okay, but over here, this top windows, chart windows actually give me some insights into whether do I want to focus on buy or sell, right? So this is a very sentimental perspective of looking at the market, but what I'm going to do is to bring you to the chart as well, okay? And of course, I've listed down all the Aussie related pairs, but we'll look and pay more attention to Australia dollar because that's like the major one, right? Okay, I'll start from a very long-term, big picture perspective, right, on the weekly chart. Okay, I apply the concept of Elliott wave, right? So of course there are different and many ways to actually analyze a chart, but right now what I do over here and I share with you is based on Elliott wave. Okay, so on the weekly, very quickly, what I'm seeing over here is that this entire move is pretty corrective. Okay, and every time I see a corrective move moving lower, I will be more keen to look for the buy side because every time I see a corrective move moving down, there's a high probability that at one point in time it will reverse to the upside, and that reversal will be a very sharp and impulsive move, something like this. Okay, so that's what I'll be looking out for, and I tend to just use very simple lines to give me some reference. Okay, so if I just put in some basic trend lines, okay, so that will act as a very quick and simple reference. And if I go down to the daily, okay, of course right now this is just a bit of adjustment. Okay, you can see right now on the daily, we are in kind of like a historical low, okay, since all the way back, even all the way to 2015. This is really a new low. Okay, but doesn't mean that because it has broken a new low we need to immediately sell it. Okay, because based on the potential of upside, okay, it's way greater than down, so I'll be more keen to look for buy opportunities, but doesn't mean that I'll be straight away immediately entering a buy position right now. Okay, what I mean is that I'll be more interested to patiently wait for a buy setup instead of actively looking for a short position. Okay, so as of now, we can see that it has broken this low and this low. Okay, and this break seems to be pretty impulsive. Okay, so that's what we get on the 4-hour time frame, on the daily. Sorry. So now if I go to the 4-hour time frame, okay, from this entire perspective, okay, we can see that this drop is pretty impulsive, a correction and an impulse move. And I would say that at this very moment there is no buy setup. Okay, but again there's also no clear short or sell opportunity, right? Unless things might give a certain change. Okay, so what I'll be looking out for, okay, on even on a 1-hour time frame, is that I want to see an impulse move to the upside. Okay, perhaps breaking some of this trend line, and I want to see a correction, okay, which is somewhat a flag or an ABC pattern, whatever it is, but basically I want to see a correction, a slow moving price development. Okay, and this will give me a valid buy setup to look for trades starting to go higher. Okay, how long will this take? Okay, if let's say this move according to how I forecast, I would say perhaps 1 to 2 weeks time, this would give me that price development, that setup for me to eventually look and take a trade. Okay, But as of now, other than the weekly perspective that is very clear, this is relatively corrective. Okay, the daily, the 4 hour, or even the 1 hour is not presenting any opportunities to look for a buy at this very moment. Okay, how far eventually price can travel, all right? We can use some high point as reference. So around the 0.8145 would be a good region to look for targets. Okay, and eventually what is giving us is this pattern here. Okay, in Elliott wave, most of the patterns move in tree, and of course, if you are more technically familiar with pattern in Elliott wave, okay, this can potentially develop into an expanding flat structure, something like this. Okay, and of course, when this develops, you can still see this is an impulse. This entire piece that we are looking at right now is perhaps a bigger correction, and we might get one more drop to the downside in a much bigger scheme of things. Okay, but at least for now, okay, we are expecting this to go, and that opportunity itself is more than enough for us to capture and capitalize on it. Okay, because if I do a very quick measurement, somewhere around that bottom to the top over here is close to 1,500 pips, and that is huge opportunity to the upside. Right, the downside is that I would say is pretty limited. It's not that it's not gonna drop anymore. Okay, but I'll be more interested to the upside because of the profit potential that it presents. Okay, if I go over to Australian Swiss franc, okay, likely we are seeing the same thing, pretty similar to the Australian dollar. Okay, you can see over here on the weekly chart, right? This move here is corrective. This move here is corrective. Okay, we might expect one more move to the upside to form this bigger corrective pattern, which is very similar to the Australian dollar. Okay, so I won't spend too much time on this. Okay, on the Australia yen. Okay, same thing. You can see this move over here, pretty corrective. Okay, so what is impulse? What is corrective? It's actually a rather relative thing. Okay, you can see this is impulse, very fast, very strong in momentum. This is very slow, right? So that itself is corrective. Okay, so again, because of that, I'll be looking for upside. And I would say that Aussie yen as of now, okay, same thing on the 1 hour chart, there is no setup, but you can see this is very corrective, right? There's a lot of overlap as it goes down. So this entire move is slow. Okay, and I would say that what I'll be waiting for, what is a valid setup for me, is a strong break out of this yellow trend line and a corrective pattern. All right, sideways move, that would be a good setup for me to look to the upside. So as of now, again, there's no clear setup on this. Okay, Australia CAD, right? This one here looks pretty interesting. Same thing if I bring you to the weekly chart. Okay, you can see over here, this entire piece is pretty corrective. In fact, this entire piece here looks corrective in nature. Okay, so if I put things into perspective, right, this can be your first impulse, this can be a correction, and then it can even go all the way with a new impulse to the upside. Okay, so that is good. Looking at this on 1 hour chart, okay, some very good technical setup at this very moment. You can see this is a potential double bottom formation. Okay, and if you're familiar with it, this becomes your neckline. Right now it's testing it. I don't trade just based on double bottom and the break of a neckline. Okay, but what I'll be waiting for, I would say, is a good corrective pattern. Okay, something like this. This will give me a good setup to take the trade to the upside. Okay, now for Australia CAD, if I were to look for a target, okay, a very ambitious target, of course, is on a weekly. Okay, this previous high over here, but that's pretty ambitious. I would say 1.0718. It might take a couple of months for it to eventually reach there. Okay, but of course, if you're, let's say, just normal swing trading, okay, you can just base on this high over here on the 4 hour chart, right? That's pretty decent as well, 0.9150. Okay, so if I do a quick measurement, it's about close to 350 pips of opportunity, okay, to the upside. That's pretty decent for Australia as well. Okay, pound Australia. Okay, this one here you can see it started, alright, and this is definitely one of the pair that I'm actually looking at. Which if I recall correctly, I mentioned about this pair last week, alright, one of the trade ideas that I posted as well on YouTube. Okay, same thing, if I look at the daily, you can see that this entire move is pretty corrective. Okay, that's why I'm looking for the downside. Okay, if pound Australia, we are looking for the downside, which means that we are looking to buy on the pound, buy on the Australia, sell on the pound. Okay, on the 4 hour, you can see this is a potential double top formation. Okay, again, a simple technical setup. Okay, and of course on the 1 hour, what we are experiencing right now is pretty impulsive. Okay, and of course right now we are now developing a potential corrective pattern. If that happens, alright, it might take some time, let's say by tomorrow, before London session. If it really goes sideways like that, we have again a good setup to perhaps add in another trade. Okay, or if let's say you're not in yet, then that becomes a very good setup for you to take a trade to the downside. Okay, for targets on the pound Australia, I would say easily you can reference a few points over here. A very quick and immediate target is about 1.8639. Okay, if you want to be a bit ambitious, you can go for around the 1.7570 area. Okay, and of course, I would say if you're someone who just wants to hold on to it, okay, you can go all the way to 1.5795 region. Okay, and that's huge because if I just take a very quick reference, that's about 3,600 pips for you to potentially catch on. Okay, so out of all, I think the pound Australia, if I'm looking to buy the Australia, right, pound Australia is actually one of the clearest setup that is presenting at this very moment. Okay, you not only have that mini double top, not only have this 4 hour big double top. Okay, on the 1 hour you can also see there's a mini double top. Okay, so that's something that a very quick technical setup. Now Euro Australia, good, right? So Euro Australia is slightly different. Okay, it's going higher, but on a weekly time frame right now, you can see that this is pretty corrective as well. Okay, and this move itself, okay, this is looking like a wedge, a diagonal. There's a higher possibility it will come down eventually. Okay, and what we are keen again to look at is, do we have a setup? Okay, as of now on the daily, this might be forming a potential double top, okay, or even breaking it, because if I draw in the entire structure, this might go even higher. Okay, this might go even higher, all the way to this top over here. Okay, but at least for now, what we are looking out for is a potential double top. Right, and right now, even on the 4 hour or the 1 hour chart, there isn't any setup. Okay, because you can see this is still pretty strong and momentum to the upside. This pair, the strength of it is actually coming from the euro. Okay, so if you look at most of the euro pairs, I think they are trending higher. Euro CAD is moving higher, euro dollar is also moving higher. Okay, the last one that is related to Australia is the Aussie Kiwi. Okay, this pair itself is just not easy to actually trade. Okay, simply because Australia and New Zealand, they are both correlated. But what I want to highlight over here is that you can see that this entire move here is pretty corrective. Okay, this is our last relatively more impulsive move, and this is a correction. Okay, which means that we might eventually still get one push to the upside impulsively. Okay. And if I just draw in some structure trend line to give us some reference guide, okay, this is how it's looking. So we might still see a small push to the downside before the move to the upside. Okay, and this one here, of course, you have both Australia and New Zealand playing out. So it's not the easiest. Okay, you can see it's very choppy, it's very in range. Not one of the easiest setup to look out for, but I would say if let's say we get a clear push to the upside and a small correction, okay, that will be a good setup to look for more upside potential, right? And if this were to go, okay, Australia, New Zealand, if it's ready to go higher, the target you can place is somewhere around 1.1420. Okay, but as of now, you can see the clearest, of course, is still the pound Australia, because in terms of analysis, we can see this is an impulse, this is a correction. Okay, that move down is of a higher probability, and it's more of, in terms of timing, this is more of the clearest that we can see a potential setup forming to buy into Australia. Okay, but again, this video is not meant to be a signal video where you watch and then just follow to buy or sell certain pairs, but it's to really share with you the whole thought process of how I analyze it, okay, from a long-term perspective using COT, to kind of give me an indicative direction as to which direction has a higher potential. Okay, and then I go over to the pairs individually to kind of analyze in terms of technical part using Elliott wave methodology to understand if the timing is right. Is there a setup for me to take a trade? Okay, so I hope this kind of analysis give you an idea of to why personally I'm looking to buy the Australia more than selling it. Okay, and how I actually select out of all the Australia related currency pair, pound Australia to be one of the pairs that I'm going to be focusing more in buying the Australia dollar. Okay, so great questions for asking me about Australia, and that gives me the opportunity to, of course, shoot this video, share with you a little bit in terms of my thought process and how I analyze.